found out that the 49ers are going to be facing the Jets for opening Monday Night Football. They're going to be opening at Levi's and facing the Jets. What was your initial reaction? Do you think one team has an advantage over the other? I'll break it down more and ask you some more questions as we go. But what was your initial reaction? I'm just excited. I love the NFL schedule. I know we don't have it all. I like that they tease it.
I'm excited.
We should have known that they weren't going to put it out last week because they kind of do this. They like to give you a couple games into beforehand.
Yeah, so my reaction to the Monday Night Football Week 1, I was super stoked because there's a couple of things I kind of hate about historically what I've seen with the 49ers Week 1 matchups is that one, they're either kind of boring, not really a good team, or two, a lot of the times they're away. We don't get a lot of home games to start the season. Part of that is because it's just so hot.
Heat, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. But this is a primetime, nighttime game, so we don't have to worry about that. It's against the Jets, Aaron Rodgers, Robert Saleh, all the hype that comes with that. This is an actually exciting Week 1 game for the 49ers. Now, the downside of it is it's Monday, so we're going to have to wait a little bit longer to watch our team. But Jay, I was on with Jay for Bully Ball earlier, and I liked how he, explained it. He's like, well, that just means we get to actually enjoy all the teams playing and not have to be anxiety ridden for Sunday. We could just kind of watch all these other teams.
I also feel like when the 49ers are playing on Sunday, either you're missing out on the other games that are playing in the same, around the same time as them.
Yeah.
But B, for us, content creator people, we usually go live after the game or something. So you're missing the later games. And I like the ability to kind of assess the competition. Now, obviously, Week 1, much like in a minute, or not in a minute, but later on in the program, we're going to talk about one practice. Same thing. Week 1 game. The 49ers, I think, have lost to the Bears or other bad teams, like you've said, during Week 1. I remember last year, everyone thought the Steelers were going to be really good, and that was going to be a hard game Week 1, and they ended up sucking, and the 49ers blew them out of the water. So, but it'll be a fun day to be able to, if you have other teams that you find different storylines interesting, or maybe looking at the NFC West and those teams playing, kind of assessing their new rookie players and stuff like that. We can invest more in that instead of, and then still give our full focus to the 49ers just the next day.
Yeah, cool. Exactly. We can just enjoy watching as content creators, like you said. We spend most of our Sundays preparing for the game and news that comes out, as well as after the games, we prepare for our instant reactions and all that, gathering all that information. So we're note taking during, it's work. And so we won't have to work on Sunday. The first Sunday of the year we'll get to actually enjoy and watch other teams. So I did Jay's perspective on that. Just being positive. So I'm okay waiting a little bit longer. And I do think this is a great matchup, for all the reasons I mentioned, Aaron Rodgers. The thing with the Jets is that we don't really know for
how
the last
year, perform, right?
Yeah, we don't really know what they're going to look like with Aaron Rodgers on offense. It wasn't a large enough sample size before he went out with his Achilles last time. And by the way, that game was Monday Night Football too. Week 1 for them.
He's gonna be a
little PTSD, but I think there's drugs for that.
But, I don't know. Knowing Aaron Rodgers, he might watch dolphins swim or some shit.
Yeah, he's got something to take care of that. But and then Robert Saleh, obviously against Kyle Shanahan. What's that going to look like? We don't know what Nick Sorensen as the defensive coordinator is going to look like, right? And this is going to be a pretty big test right off the bat. For him.
Going against Like, I mean,
an unknown. Like
they did
there's some
pretty.
things about the Jets team and their offense, but there's
Garrett
some things you
Wilson is
don't
a
really know.
star.
So yeah.
Garrett Wilson is a star, and I will say, like, people, I feel like, rag on the Jets, but considering that they put all of their eggs in the Aaron Rodgers basket, I don't think they did too terribly last year for the fact that they, I mean, I think you can criticize, like, maybe they should have had a better backup quarterback, but for what they had, their defense performed very well. And you're right, their offense is kind of an unknown, and Aaron Rodgers himself is kind of an unknown, right? Because he had 2 back-to-back MVP seasons and then kind of looked pretty poor his final season in Green Bay, gets all this hype, to go to this new team, and then immediately tears his Achilles. Obviously, he's older, but he's been such a star. So I think, I could listen to arguments of people being like, he's old, he's coming off this injury, he's not going to perform good. And then I could listen to someone else talk about, he's only a couple years removed from MVP level performances, and he has this history of being able to do this, and he's actually going to have a supporting cast and a good defense. And I could listen to both people make separate arguments and agree with, their outcome of how they think that the Jets offense might perform. So it really is a very open, mystery, which is something 49er fans understand. Like Brock Purdy last year coming off an elbow injury, we're like, can he, throw for a full game without it getting sore? Was questions we were asking. So as fans, we're familiar with that, level of unknown, and I'm excited. Also, you go to storylines, Robert Saleh versus Kyle Shanahan. I know it's not exactly like that because I don't think Saleh is actually the DC, but still has obviously influence on it. And I mean, I think both, like, we know that Kyle really likes to kind of stick it to his former coordinators. I think he likes to show, like, you kind of came from me, and this is our role. Like, I am, in the hierarchy. I think he has some pride in that. And then we go back to Robert Saleh. Like, there is pressure on him, and obviously it's week 1. It's not like if they lose, the season is over. But I think there's pressure on Robert Saleh to do well this year as the Jets head coach. So it's going to be a really interesting year. How do you feel like, someone in the comments said, do you think that the Jets defense will create havoc for the 49ers offense? I mean, that's going to be their goal.
I mean, that Jets defense is legit. And I mean, Ulbrich and Saleh are really good coordinators. Again, like they're very familiar with Kyle Shanahan. They're familiar with the 49ers offense, the personnel in it. So yeah, I have to imagine they're going to have a really good plan against the 49ers. But this is where Kyle Shanahan and his new toys, I think, can come in, right? Because Ricky Pearsall, Jacob Cowing, I would say it isn't crazy to expect that maybe we see both of those guys get some snaps in this game, just to add like a new and different element to this offense that you didn't have before, because the Jets are going to be expecting you to do, X,
like
Y,
Robert
Z.
Saleh has intimate knowledge of how maybe Kyle Shanahan prefers to utilize his players in his offense. So maybe it being week 1, Kyle will have some tricks up his sleeve using those new guys. I like that theory.
I think so. And I like what you said too, because it's true. Like, Shanahan does seem to like to stick it to his proteges and, anyone who is under his tree. I love that about Shanahan. If only, like, maybe we just need a Super Bowl where it's Shanahan against one of his former coaches,
He does seem to come out hard. The Niners will destroy the Jets, someone says. I don't know. Destroy seems a bit intense. From your channel, Technasheik says, to add more to the PTSD, Leonard Floyd was the one that tackled Rodgers. Is that true? Damn.
That's crazy. Yeah, I didn't even, like... Yeah.
I mean, I will say, like, I feel like these football players, like, I like to think that I don't think these things actually stay with them and get with them. Like, you know what I mean? When Dre Greenlaw's bouncing on the field, I don't think he's going to be like, obviously you have the thought, but I think it'll just more be Rodgers. Like there's only so much, and this was the same thing that we said about Brock Purdy. There's only so much you can do in practice. That first game, I think you're really trying out things and feeling it. And for the length of a game, like most practices aren't that long, and you can't really simulate. I mean, this even goes back to like maybe the Trey Lance thing, right? Or just rookie drafting quarterbacks in general, like teams try to like simulate that pressure and see what the quarterback's going to do. But these things are not easily replicable. There we go. I'll say that word.
Just say it fast enough.
I mean, I just made that sound really bad. And I was like saying it right, but I said it so slow and each syllable that it sounded wrong. But no, I'm excited. I don't necessarily think that the Jets have, a coaching advantage. I think I would actually probably say that I think the 49ers have the coaching advantage when we look at Kyle Shanahan and how he's just the offensive coordinator he is in general. And then specifically, if we narrow down to how he does perform against his former colleagues. Now, the unknown for the 49ers side, and I think we had someone comment about this, is going to be seeing the marriage between Nick Sorensen and Brandon Staley and how that defense looks, how the defense looks without Dre Greenlaw, and just how they plan to attack the Jets offense. Because much like we're saying, maybe Kyle Shanahan will want to add in some loopholes, whether it's with the new toys or just different schemes that maybe Robert Saleh isn't as familiar with. Because the Jets haven't done much with Aaron Rodgers, the 49ers are facing the same issue where they don't necessarily know how to prepare. I mean, obviously they're going to come up with a game plan based on former tape and everything, it seems like when Rodgers was in Green Bay, that the way to handle him was to kind of frustrate him and almost make him quit as he got more frustrated, right? Like when he felt like I don't know. I remember him kind of almost, it felt like he would like throw little tantrums when he felt like his wide receivers weren't doing enough for him and stuff like that. Now he does have, once again, Garrett Wilson, but he had Devontae Adams. So it's like, it's going to be interesting. I think there's going to be a lot of real-time adjustments that are going to be happening on both sides of the ball, but specifically on defense. I kind of think offenses have their game plan going into the game, and then the defense's job is to like react almost in real time to what the opposing offense is doing. And that's not even just Jets having a new quarterback. That's a week one thing in general. That's why I think you and I I've definitely heard other creators talk about, like, even if you're going against maybe a worse off team, week one is always so unpredictable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, and you have this kind of like hype, like the like doom of, oh, my team is bad, hasn't really like hit into players. They're still like, okay, let's go out and do it. But do you think that there's because last week everyone on the timeline was debating Brock Purdy versus Jordan Love and yada, yada, yada. Do you think that there's a quarterback advantage on either side, or do you think that that's also maybe something?
I mean, obviously, if we're just comparing careers, Aaron Rodgers has had the better career. Like, I don't think anyone would argue that. But Aaron Rodgers is a lot older right now. So again, that goes back to the unknown. We don't know what Aaron Rodgers in 2024 is going to look like. The Jets have surrounded him with weapons, and obviously Hackett, a good offense, you can assume. But in reality, we don't really know. We don't know what it's going to look like. So I don't know if Aaron Rodgers is an advantage right now over Brock Purdy. That's hard to say. As an entire offense, I'd say the 49ers as a whole are the better offense right now.
Yeah.
We just don't.
And it looks, did you see BA?
The Jets are.
It was a thought that splashed in my mind when you were saying that. But did you see, I didn't have it written down, but did you see BA on Instagram outside his house, living his best life, saying, I don't got neighbors. I got a big, giant new house. I got premium gas in all my cars and a trampoline and yada, yada, yada. It looked like he was celebrating some stuff. So when we're talking about 49ers offense, we might have some, someone nailed down a little bit, I think. Maybe that news is coming.
Yeah, because I know people like saw that and it was like, huh, Brandon, you got something to tell us? Like, would you be the kind of person who, if you know you're about to get a raise or like a promotion at work, let's just say for like us normal people here, would you start spending your money ahead of time, like or would you wait? Or would you wait until you actually got the promotion and like signed shit to start spending the money like that?
I think I would wait. I'm pretty frugal, I guess, with money, which my dad is watching this and he would be like, no, you're not. But I was raised by my dad who was like extremely frugal with money. So like I definitely feel like I have some of that, and I have like weird anxiety where it's like, what if this falls through or something? But I do know, because I follow Rochelle is her name, and I think it's okay that I say that because he posts her all the time, but it's Brandon Ayuk's long-term girlfriend, and they've been like looking for houses for a long time. And I remember, I mean, even at the end/middle of last season, them saying like they didn't want to buy a new house, which like, I'm not trying to break news over here, but they said like, we don't want to buy a new house until we know what Brandon's going to do long term. And then now Brandon's posting outside a house.
See, that's
he didn't have it like tagged to Santa Clara. Maybe the house is somewhere else, but it didn't seem like that.
That's true. So, it could be somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because like,
I don't know. To me, that made it feel like a deal is either like, whether or not it's like signed right now, it felt like, his agent told him like a deal is done. Because they said that they weren't going to buy a house until they knew what was happening with him, which would make sense.
It could just be like, we know that the 49ers are going to offer him a deal. Like they've already offered one. Like it could be that they're at that point in the negotiations where the 49ers have offered something, but they're still in negotiations. But at least they know they've offered something that already like shows intent, that already gives them the thought of, okay, like Brandon is definitely going to be here. He didn't get traded after the draft. Okay, now we can start kind of looking. But yeah, I mean, what was interesting though is like, yeah, he's kind of like sharing the house like it's new, but like there's some things in the backyard that like, I guess the only thing is the jumpy thing, which maybe whoever sold it could have left that there.
Yeah. Like,
because I was like, it looks like already. They've been moved in already. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, it wasn't like moving boxes and stuff. I agree. I don't know.
I don't know. We're all speculating here.
I know. But I saw that and I was like, huh. I remember like 6 months ago them saying that they weren't going to do this until they knew. Which, I mean, just on a logistics level, makes sense. Not even like if you're worried the money won't fall through. It's just like, oh, like I don't want to buy a house in Santa Clara if I'm not going to live there, Steph, they are rich. They can get that built in an hour. All right. There we go. And at this point in their careers, really quickly to get back to this, because I didn't read it, I would take Brock Purdy over Rodgers. I mean, I do think like that's definitely where I'm leaning. Aaron Rodgers is 40 years old, by the way. I Googled that. He's 40 years old. That's crazy. I mean, not to like down 40-year-olds, they're not, whatever.
I mean, this kind of reminds me of like when Tom Brady was a free agent and like he had the chance to go to the 49ers, or the 49ers.
Yeah, that's true. We're like gonna,
and we're like, no, we don't need washed up Tom Brady.
Yeah.
We have Jimmy Garoppolo kind of thing. Not to say that they're exactly the same. But it just there's some parallels to that discussion, I think.
I completely agree. I think it's just not a judgment that we can make at this time. Especially because like, I mean, with certain players, maybe Russell Wilson, you can say there's been like a steady drop off. With Aaron Rodgers, it really was like MVP, top of the league, and then like bad season. So you're like,
and also the other thing there, I mean, Russell Wilson is a great example to like the counter argument, right? Because you see the decline now with two different teams, whereas like maybe it was like, oh, a change of scenery, like He'll definitely go
yeah, like
back to being good. And we don't know that about Rodgers yet. Like, could a change of scenery and him actually getting a really good defense, him actually getting some like nice offensive
Like,
weapons.
think about the
Like,
hype
yeah.
that they had going into last year. I think because like maybe just this year off of him kind of talking nonsense, or just maybe it's just the injury, whatever. But like the way the narrative, the popular narrative around him and around the Jets, it does feel a lot more negative than when you think just a year ago, people were like predicting maybe the Jets get to the freaking Super Bowl. Like, I mean, people were high on him, that Aaron Rodgers was finally making the effort to get to know his rookie receivers, hanging out with the offense, doing group things that he never did in Green Bay. Like, people had a lot of that, like, new scenery, new guy thing. And it feels like maybe they're just trying to, the Jets in general, not Aaron Rodgers specifically, but trying to like lay low. They had such high expectations last year. Maybe they're just like, we just want to go into the season, and if we shock people and we're great, but we don't want to build ourselves up in that way to have that crash and burn if something does happen. And then I agree with this point for a lot of teams. I mean, I think there is something to also, like, over the years, like we kind of know that the Chiefs are probably going to be good. We assume, there's some teams, like, unless there's a major injury, you think they're going to be good. But then there's other teams, I do feel like you have to have a couple games in your belt before you really can assess where they're at, especially teams that are in that rebuild mode. Like Seattle, I'm interested. I know that, I think that were they like 9-8 last year? It'll be interesting.
Like them.
It'll be interesting with the new regime to see how they are. But after, game one, although I am interested in, reactionary, so I'm sure that if they lose, I'm going to be like, see, Seattle sucks. But I think in a non-heated way, this is a more authentic thing. You have to have a couple,
because you remember when the Bears beat the Niners,
yeah.
2 week ones ago. They were like, yo, this is the year, like, we up, and we saw what happened there. So
okay, I'm gonna shift this away from the week one game. I mean, I am excited it'll be home. I do agree with you. Normally they're not home because of the